James Caan. Michael Murphy wasn't on there, but starred with you in Brewster McCloud and the other Altman films. But we're so honored today to have a truly great triple threat, if you will, on stage and screen and the two. So please, a big warm welcome for our Lifetime Achievement nominee, Sally Kellerman. We have with us Foster Hirsch, who's done these interviews for us. He's a renowned lecturer, film historian, author, and he'll be taking us through some of Sally's lifetime memories of entertainment. So please, have a seat.
We're going to talk for about 45 minutes or so, and it's going to be pure pleasure. Doesn't Sally Kellerman have a wonderful voice? Yeah. One of a kind. Absolutely one of a kind. I just love your voice.
Oh,
it's so smoky. But you don't smoke, do you?
Well, I can't reveal these things. But I just want to say that I can't believe this group of films you put together. I mean, I've seen some of the older films and the movies. But to see those early television clips was so funny. Hands of a Stranger, I didn't even know I had a part. I thought they just had me as a corpse, and when they rolled the corpse out of the film, I had these big boobs about like this, you know, lying on my back. And I don't know, but oh, it was so much fun. I can't believe it.
What's interesting about the clips is the first clip is dated 1957, and your big breakthrough MASH is 1970. So
1969.
1969.
Yeah.
So you can't say you were an overnight sensation. It took a while. You had your apprenticeship.
You know that old expression, do you swear in Florida, no shit, Sherlock, you know? Right.
It took a while.
Yes, it
did
did.
take
I
a while.
started like with 2 lines and, you know, eyebrows. But in what did I do in 1957? The Hands of a Stranger?
Reform School Girl.
Oh, Reform School Girl. I was great in that.
Yeah. American International
With the
Spanish.
bloody hand, yeah.
But while you were getting these opportunities, were you studying with somebody you invoke in your book as a miracle, Mr. Jeff Corey?
Oh yeah, Jeff Corey. He was a miracle to me. Can you hear me? I feel like this isn't very loud. Yeah, can you all turn it up, or I just have to speak up?
Is that good?
Is that better? Yeah, that's better, isn't it? Yeah.
We have to hear that voice.
Okay,
But
so can you hear me easily?
Many actors I've spoken with talk in the same way about Jeff Corey, that he was just the best acting coach ever.
Oh, he was.
What was it that he gave you?
I don't have a clue, except that when I first went in there, he had me do a scene from a Soroyan's, I forget what it was called, and I did the scene, and he said to me, "Have you ever acted before?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you have talent." And so that was, you know, so it was encouragement. I feel like this isn't loud enough.
Yeah, it got softer again.
It got softer again. I guess if I get away from it at all. Is there any more cranking it up, guys? Was there a yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, how's that now?
Yes, that's good.
How's that? How's that? Okay, I just have to, is that too loud now? No. All right, so yes, back to your question.
Mr. Jeff Corey.
I don't know, I think it's always almost like when I met Robert Altman for Hot Lips. Both those men in my life, the way I saw it, the way I felt about it, was that they really saw who I was, and that in spite of my girth or, you know, all the low self-esteem I had, that, I mean, where Bob Altman took advantage of my low self-esteem, you know, and really ran with it. Jeff just always encouraged me, you know, and when I'd wear things to hide, he'd say, "Pull that sweater up off your hands, you know, and let's see you." And then I had learning disabilities. I didn't know it till my young twins went to this special school, you know, and I didn't care. You know, I didn't learn a thing in school. And
you didn't learn a thing?
Not one thing in Hollywood High. So I couldn't articulate what I really learned from Jeff. It was more osmosis, because I wasn't a great student. I had a teacher once who said, if you read these 3 books, you'll be a great actress. He told the class, you know, after I'd known Jeff for many years, I went to somebody else, you know, I cried for 3 days because I knew I would never get through those 3 books, you know, so it was more, I don't know, he must have said a lot of great things because I stayed with Jeff Corey for a long time, and my classmates were Jack Nicholson and James Coburn and Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown, and Roger Corman, who started every director you ever heard of, and cinematographer. And,
so he was saying things to a lot of people.
He was saying
who
things
who encouraged a lot of people.
Yeah, Roy Finnis from The Invaders was in class, and Robert Blake was in class, and all kinds of people that he taught. So I think I just learned by osmosis, and probably took me longer. That's probably why it took me longer to.
But he saw you had the talent.
He did, yeah.
And he obviously shaped it. And I bet he knew how to reach you, because I know you a little bit, and you operate by instinct.
I did.
Oh, you're very, like all good actors, you're very instinctual.
Oh, thanks a lot.
You just sense things.
Okay, good. I'm so glad to hear any compliment. I'll take any kind of compliment, guys.
Okay, but then MASH happens, and of course that puts you in a completely different category. Because we saw the earlier work, it's all very promising, and we can see you growing.
I was going to say it was nice to see that I was getting better.
Yes,
you know?
we saw it. We saw the improvement.
Right.
But then MASH comes along, and it's astonishing.
Oh.
And would you say you owe your stardom to Robert Altman giving you a chance?
I do. But I have to acknowledge Joe Stefano for giving me those first 2 Outer Limits. The first one was Gary Merrill and Harry Gardino, and then he wrote the second one, the one that I got trapped in the shield with Marty Landau. But yes, when I got to Bob, it was one of those just fated things. I went to the meeting when they said it was for Lieutenant Dish, and all my life I'd hidden my mouth and my lips. I never wanted to wear lipstick or anything, you know, but it was for Lieutenant Dish, so I put on some red lips. I went out to this meeting, it was all men. They didn't have women in the executive position in those days. And I didn't know which one the director was, you know, and so I'm sitting there, I don't know what it's going to be. And he says, and halfway through the meeting, I'll give you the best part in the picture, hot lips. And I went, oh my God, I'm having fun. I've been desperate to be in the movies. I did a little bit in The Boston Strangler as the victim, and I was with George Papard on the 3rd day. I was thin for the first time. I thought I'd rocket to stardom, but nothing. And anyway, I went outside and I counted the lines like all bad actors. Oh my God, the best part of the picture, and I couldn't even find it. So I just turned to stone. I'll never get in the movies. As you saw, I did a lot of television in the 60s. I'll never get in the movies. And I was just bitter, and I went back and I saw my agent, BS and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I think he's really talented. Why don't you go back and see him? So I reread the script, and I went back in there and I said, and he was alone. And I go in and I said, you know, I'm not just a whack, I'm a woman, and why does she have to leave the film? And why couldn't she do this? And why couldn't she do that? And how come she, and he goes, well, why couldn't she? Why don't you take a chance? You could end up with something or nothing. I was like, huh? In TV, you couldn't change the but, or the suits from the tower would come down and go, oh, I don't know, that's pretty scary, you know. And Bob was saying, take a chance, something or nothing. And I thought, oh my God, I was in love.
He was your kind of guy. He was your kind of director. You were speaking the same language.
Yeah, I mean, it was true. It was true. It was non-intellectual. It was freedom. And he was a rebel and an ornery son of a gun and just the greatest. And so many films, if you've seen any of Robert Altman's films, they're always filled with stars, the biggest stars in the business. And it's because everybody, all actors wanted to work with Bob because there was something, it's like, you know, when your husband or your wife loves you and you really know she gets you and who you are and loves you for who you are. Well, that's what I felt from Bob right away. He liked to make fun of me and tease me about my low self-esteem. And the first thing he said to me when I had that, you know, stiff, you know, with the big red lips and the hat, and like Joanne Flug, who did Lieutenant Dish, she got to wear a scarf and makeup. She got laid. I didn't, you know. Nobody even looked at me. And I was looking in the mirror like the first day of shooting, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this will be the end of everything. And he walks away and goes, without stopping, if you worry about what you look like, you're fired. And, you know, so it was those kinds of things.
He saw you. He got you.
Yeah, he got me.
you.
He did, and he was going to have me play Snoopy. And when we did Brewster McCloud, he says, "Ever see how she hides her teeth with her lips?" And you know, he just was aware of everything I did. And
is it true that during the making of the film there was lots of improvisation? That's the reputation he has.
I know, it was, well, he hired this comedy group. All those other people that were in the film, other than Elliot and Don and Thomas Garrett and myself, and Joanne Flug, were from a comedy group in San Francisco, and I don't know what the name of it was, but they were already primed for improvisation and things like that. So in the background of the scene, and he and Bob Altman invented the sound system that could catch what you're saying, what he's saying, what everybody all at once.
All at once.
And that was a brand new thing. So they were incredible for that, because if they was called on to fill in the atmosphere, you know, they knew stuff to say and funny things. And I mean, in terms of improvisation, after I did that breakdown scene that you saw, Bob ran around the tent and he said, "I had no idea you were going to do it like that. Now you can stay in the picture, you've changed, you're vulnerable." And so my wish came true with no planning. You know, it's just that he kept the camera rolling after I'd finished all the dialogue. And so when I backed out of the tent going, my commission, it was just that nobody said cut, and I realized that Hot Lips was going to lose everything she loved. So I backed out of the tent, and so he made up things. I mean, in terms of...
So he added you to the film when you weren't in the script.
I wasn't supposed to be. Hot Lips was supposed to be long gone, baby. Just think about Loretta Switch. You wouldn't have had anything to do for 12 years, you know what I mean?
So you gave her her career.
I gave her her career. I made the whole thing so great. But anyway...
and
you
what,
know,
now
things like, I just want to say this one thing. So improvisational, I mean, you know, I got to finally get laid. I got to play poker with the guys.
Cheerleader.
And the cheerleading, that was the biggest gift of my life. You know, in high school I was 5'10", 175, and a butch haircut, the last person on earth they were going to get for a cheerleader. And here I got to be a cheerleader. I saw the movie about 3 years ago for the first time in 30 years, because I was with Catherine Altman and we were on this book tour. But I mean, the improvisation was like this. He's up on a crane high over the football field, you know, football game in the movie if you saw it. And suddenly they say, "Roll it." And then I hear, "Sally, when the gun goes off at the half, say, 'My God, they shot him,'" you know, and things like that. So, I mean, and then I seen it recently when the colonel said, "Hot Lips, you're a blithering idiot." You know, nothing made me happier than that, because I did win the A9 class clown at San Fernando High. That's the only thing, junior high, that's the only thing I've won so far. But I got nominated for Academy Award for Hot Lips and Gold Glove and stuff, so that was a lot of fun.
Now, we can't have you here without talking about the scene in MASH, where the tent comes down and there you are. Was that hard for you to do?
Oh no, it was a breeze. I'd always wanted to be naked in front of the world, you know. Oh my God, it was so frightening, but it was such a great, you know, it was just such a wonderful role. And
but you mentioned in the book that your co-stars made it easy for you by giving you support off camera.
Yeah,
tell us about that, because that's fascinating.
I think that was Bob again, you know.
Oh, really?
He knew how scared I was. You know, I said, "Can I wash my hair so I'm not just staring at the tent?" You know, I asked him if I could look pretty. If I was saying, I said, "Well, I get to look pretty?" And I was so feeling I was so fat and horrible and everything. He goes, "Yeah, you can be. Well, we'll sit you with 120 guys in the crew and we'll light you, or as fast as you hit the deck. That's what we'll see." So I naturally took the deck. And when I hit the deck the first time in the first take, we probably only needed one, but there was well, I should wait and let you read the book, but there was Gary Bergdorf standing stark naked in front of me, off camera, and so I attribute my nomination to the expression on my face when I looked up and saw him, you know. So then suddenly Bob had to do take two. You know. I don't know whether he needed 3 takes or not, but he took them. And so the second time I hit the deck, I was sure there was going to be somebody naked there, and instead I saw these ample breasts, you know, just lovely bosom, just, you know, anyway, breast. And I thought I was going to see a guy, so I thought I was seeing an hermaphrodite, you know, somebody with both, you know. Anyway, and the third one, the same nurse now was fully dressed, and the darling guy, Kenny Primus, who sang, the black actor who sang Suicide is Painless at the funeral, was dry humping her. So I know this was Bob Altman's. It was to make me feel more comfortable. Either that or just because he's a devil, you know.
You said that making that film was like going to summer camp.
It was, with a genius in the wings. Yeah, because in one scene he asked me on the way walking to the set, "Where are you from, Sally?" And I said, "San Fernando," you know, so proudly. And he goes, you know, waves me away. And he says, "Well, when Donald asks you where you're from, tell him you think I'd like to think of the Army as your home." And that was the whole key to the character. I'd already done that scene, and I'd done a lot of stuff because I did whatever homework I thought I should do.
So that was the clue for your character,
but
the through
was,
line.
That was the whole through line for the
For
character.
that character.
It was, she wasn't just nasty, it was that she, you know, it was her home, and they were just respecting it.
Now, did you ever, for 50 years steadily, and you're remembered for MASH? I have to tell you, I asked Christopher Plummer, who's done so much wonderful work, and his most famous part is in The Sound of Music. And I said, what would you think if 50 years from now, after we're all gone, that's the part you're remembered for, that film? And he answered something that we can't say in polite company.
Is that right?
But he resents being identified with that one part.
Oh, he's done so many good roles lately, and he's not.
But do you feel that?
I don't resent it.
You don't
I
resent
mean,
it.
listen, that I had so many feelings. I sunk my career 3 times. You know, I'm not just hot lips. I'm a serious dramatic actress. You saw my serious work in the TV. But I've grown up since then, and I'm so grateful. And it is, you ask Elliot or Tom Skerritt, I mean, we so revered Bob, and I would have missed it for anything. And I didn't want to do the series, so.
Were you asked for the series?
Yeah, sure. But if it had been Bob Altman, and I would have gone in a heartbeat. But I'd been in television trying to get out. All those things we saw tonight.
So you didn't want to go back?
Let me out, you know. Now I'm trying to get in television. You know, because the writing is so good now, and there's so many interesting shows on television, and we have so many monsters and car people walking around in iron, where, you know, so the television is.
It's where the good writing is.
It's really right at this
writing.
moment, yeah. I mean, there's the occasional really great film, but
So you want to get back into TV.
so now I'm having to fight my way back into television. I fought my way out, I'm fighting my way back in.
But I've mentioned there's so many other films to talk about, and that's what I want to do now.
Good.
We're going to leave MASH. We love MASH. Don't we think it's fabulous? It's just fabulous. It's one of the great films.
I think it's a wonderful series. I know that so many of you have got me confused with other people and stuff like that, but that's, yeah, no, I was never sorry that I didn't do the series, only until the 11th season, when I realized I could have been a very, very wealthy woman.
I want to talk about a film that you made a few years after MASH.
Yes.
That was an enormous disaster at the time, and has become a huge cult favorite, Lost Horizon.
And you wake up each day, do you like what you see? I told that at lunch today,
Yes.
you know how Hermes Pan was the choreographer, and he said, you don't even need to dance, you have the shoulders. And I knew Burt Bacharach slightly, and he was so handsome. And he and Hal David was my biggest supporter in my music life up until the day he died. He asked me to sing at his 90th birthday along Stevie Wonder and everybody. But the picture was Lost Horizon. And
A musical version.
a musical version of the original Lost Horizon. Nobody here remembers the original probably, except for
Oh, yes.
a few of us. But
They,
it's a great film.
they're savvy. They know.
Yeah, it was a great film and everything. So this was Ross Hunter who produced all those wonderful tearjerkers,
Yes,
Atlanta
fabulous,
Turner.
yeah.
And he's a great showman, Ross Hunter. So lead me back to what we're talking about.
The film was a huge flop at the time. It nearly destroyed everyone's career.
Well, Burt and Hal were, they couldn't play, there wasn't a song that went on the radio that wasn't Burt Bacharach and Hal David, Dionne Warwick, and, you know, I mean, amazing. And it really hurt Burt so much. I mean, it was just, you know, when you're just so, you know, have such an amazing talent and everything like that, he was crushed.
He was crushed by the failure of it.
Crushed by the failure of it, and I think Hal was too, and I think that added to their split. I'm not sure, but they've been together and made so many great things. They never wrote anything else but Alfie. They would have been, you know.
But what? Did you think it was a bad film?
Well, it was a terrible script from my point of view, and I didn't want to do it, even though I always needed to sing, and well, I'm a singer, and I already made my first album. So I said, well, if Bert will write me a song on my own, because I had that duet with Olivia, then I'll do it. I was cocky, you know, because I was Miss Big now. That practically destroyed my career too, believing my own publicity. A warning to any of you who get very famous, you know, from your work, you know, don't believe it. So anyway, I give this, my new album, we call them that, to Bert. And he listened to it and he says, James Brown. You know, meaning like I sound like James Brown. And so I thought, okay, now he's going to write me The Look of Love. And they're going to come in a close-up of the camera, and I'm going to be singing, "Look of love is on your face," and I'll be, you know, the biggest household singing star in the world. Instead, he wrote, "When you wake up each day, do you like how you feel?" And my shoulders, that were going to be so groovy and great, you know, are now like bump, 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 bump. Definitely not. Hal told me only a couple of years before he died. He said, "You know, in retrospect, I think that wasn't really the right song for you." And why? You know, Miss Pushy, I'm not doing this unless Bert writes for me. I should have gone and said, "Bert," I would have whined. I wouldn't have been pushy. "Oh, I don't want to sing that. Can't you write me something better?" You know. But it was great. It was Lee Woolman. She was always starring in what's his name?
Bergman.
Bergman. Yeah, Ingmar Bergman's films. And Peter Finch, remember when he yelled out the window, "I've had it, I'm not going to take it anymore." One of the great English.
John Gielgud is in it. Charles Boyer.
Charles Boyer, John Gielgud, just on and on. It was
Fabulous
a huge cast.
And it didn't work.
And it didn't work. You're supposed to go, because there was no script. There really wasn't a script. And then Ross Hunter, he had, I think now that they put it back in, there was a big dance number with men in loincloths that they had to cut out, and oh my God.
But now it's a cult favorite.
And now it is. People would show it at midnight at certain theaters, and people come to all these young kids and say, "My parents and I watched it every Christmas," you know. So, but I think I said at the luncheon, that I told Bert that at Hal's Memorial. I said, you know, Lost Horizon, you know, people come up to me now in the last few years and talking about Lost Horizon. And he said, when I hear Lost Horizon, I just keep walking, you know. So.
I want to talk about a film that you don't keep walking because it's a delightful film, A Little Romance.
Oh, I love
with Diane Lane, who was a wonderful child star, and you mentioned in the book that you're not at all surprised she became a terrific adult actress.
She's so wonderful. And also Laurence Olivier was in the film.
And you in the book, you quote Laurence Olivier speaking to you, a man of enormous charm. This man,
gosh! Now, you know, Marlon Brando had, you know, in the book, I talk a lot about Marlon because I had a couple of experiences, and I've been worshiping, desperately worshiping from the time I was in junior high. And the other person that all we young actors was really respected, Marlon was the one. He changed the face of acting in America, you know, forever. And the other one was Laurence Olivier, who was a great classic actor. And so I ended up in a film with him in Paris, where we were shooting. Yay! And he came late. He came like a month after we'd been shooting, and he sent a letter saying we had to call him Larry. You know, he was Sir Laurence Olivier, and we had to call him Larry. So, okay, we were all waiting for Larry to come, and I had a day off, and he arrived the day I had off, and I was walking around Paris on my day off, and I came upon where they were shooting, and my makeup artist said, "Oh, Larry's here. Oh, and he'd love to meet you. Oh, come on, right here. Just go in his trailer." Opened up Larry's trailer and shoved me in, and Laurence Olivier is sitting there at his desk. He goes, who? I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Larry." Sally Kellerman. He says, "Oh, hello. Now I shall sleep like a dear boy, having met you." And I'm like, okay. I'm stumbling back out the thing, so shocked. He was so warm and effusive. I wonder if I left out any. I usually remember everything to the detail, you know. Now I shall sleep like a dear boy, having met you. Oh, my lovely, my dear, something like that.
Got enormous charm.
Oh, my goodness. And, you know, he'd sit on the set and he'd go, "I don't think George Roy Hill directed Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a lot of great films."
He was very different from Altman, wasn't he, as the director?
Oh,
Night and day.
Oh, my God, it's so great. He was also a great director. But his directing skills were like this. We had a scene at the table, a breakfast thing with my husband and somebody else. And he says, we do a take, and he goes, "Cut, Sally, can you raise your voice?" But the way he said, "Can you raise your voice?" And you kind of go, "Oh, yeah." And so then we do another take. He goes, God, can you lower your arms and raise your voice? You know? And that was his directing. He would tell this young little French boy, you know, or he'd tell me at the party with, I forget who that famous actor was from a television series. Anyway, Broderick Crawford. Great. But anyway, I was supposed to do a double take, and oh, hi, Broad, and I was this fancy thing, and I had a second, I don't know what I had to do, but he'd say, not like that, like this, you know, and he would tell me.
So very technical.
Very technical. The first day at rehearsal, I'm sorry to make this so boring, I'm not thinking straight, but the first rehearsal of the first day of shooting, we did a take, and I said to him, is that sort of the right feel, the right idea? And he goes, a little less of this, and I think we've got it, you know. I knew what he meant, but I mean, but that's the kind of director he was.
You didn't talk about emotion, motivation, character,
no,
psychology.
Just to do the double take, you know, just close your eyes, not, you know, and so it was really funny. But they said when Paul Newman told this story that when he was working with him that he had a really serious back problem, George Roy Hill did, so that he had to lay on a board to direct, kind of, you know, instead of standing up. And every time Paul didn't like what he had to say, he said, lower the board, and they just lower the director. You know? So the director thought he was in charge, but he wasn't really.
Another important director you worked with was Blake Edwards, on a film that isn't as well remembered as it should be. That's Life.
Oh, it was
with
so.
Julie Andrews and Jack Lemmon, not
Jack
too bad, the co-stars.
And Robert Loggia, not too bad.
Not too bad.
And we did it at his house. It was my husband's idea. Blake didn't want to be attached to the studios. He wanted his freedom. And so John says, I'll get you freedom. Let's make a movie for $1 million and we'll do it at your house. So even Blake and I had the same analyst, and we were in group therapy together for years. And he helped develop the characters. The analyst did, and there was a lot of improv in that.
A lot of improv in that?
Damn it, he had me play this character that just talked nonstop. I wonder where he got that idea. But, you know, but he had me going so fast and talking so fast, I felt like I was like a tsetse fly, you know, but he finally gave me that one moment where I got to sit down with Julie on the rock, and that really meant a lot to me.
It's a very good film.
It's
It just
really
isn't revived as much as it should be.
Really, if you haven't seen it, it's called
Terrific.
That's Life.
That's Life.
She gets the news about cancer on Friday and has to wait over the weekend, and the things that go on between she and Jack and the family, and it was so touching and wonderful and real.
What was Julie Andrews like to work with?
Oh, she's so lovely. She really is. She's unusually, you know, you think she's just going to be formal and, you know, British and everything, but, and then she'd surprise you, you know, and she's lovely. She's just lovely. She's just all the things you'd think she would be. You know?
That same year, you made a terrific film that the audience obviously knows
At the
and
same
laughed
time.
at. Back to School.
Made them at the same time.
Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in the book that he was really quite serious about his work and very professional.
Yeah, I mean, for me and my job as an actress, it was the easiest job I ever had. I just had to love him. Didn't have to do any acting at all, you know. I get the greatest boyfriends, don't I? How about the guy I got, was the boyfriend before I got Rodney? Remember him, you know, super stiff and pompous and ridiculous, you know? But anyway, when you ask me about what it's like working, everybody wants to know what it's like working with Rodney Dangerfield, expecting big roars of laughter as I tell them the stories, but truthfully, he was every night in his robe working on scenes, working on the jokes. The director loved his talent and really appreciated it. So he would just say, all right, Rodney, just plant your feet and speak. And my one brag of the night is that the director gave me the credit for helping him be human. I love that. But anyway, so he was, I mean, he came in one day, came in at 6 in the morning, you know, sweating. He goes, all right, I'm stoned, you know. And then they never, I hadn't done a studio film in a long time, in a while, and they treated us like gold. They drive you across the street from your house, you know, in a limo, just to make sure you were okay. And he'd be in the car going, oh, this is the worst experience of my life. How can you do it? And of course, that makes you laugh, you know, because the more he complained in that voice, the more he did. And that's a story I tell all the time. But then he got honored at the airport somewhere in LA, you know, would I like to go with him? And he brought a girl, and it was, you know, in a limo, they had, you know, drinks and everything like that. And so, you know, he got more relaxed, and maybe I did too, but so he got his honor, and we get back in the car, and now I feel like, hey, we're a little chummy, you know, this is nice. So I say to him, you know, Rodney, you're going to have to come up and have dinner with me and Jonathan one night at the house. And I love this part. The look on his face was, I would rather get in a helicopter and jump than have dinner at your house, you know, with your husband, a nice quiet dinner. He wanted to be in Vegas. He wanted to be he was a nightclub guy. He had nightclubs. You know, Vegas was
He didn't
him.
want a quiet dinner at home.
He didn't want a quiet dinner with me and my husband. Oh my God, it was so funny. They're just, oh, I love to tell that story because it tickles me so much, you know. Whereas Robert Shaw, I did a film with
Reflection of Fear.
he loved to come to my house. I shouldn't make fun of him. It was so great, but he drank an awful lot, you know, and so he was so bombastic. Oh, volleyball. And I said, well, it's a badminton court. No, volleyball. Well, you can't play one-handed volleyball. Oh, yes, wonderful. And he invited his English agent to join us for dinner with he and Mary Dore one night at my house. I rushed home to Women's Age. I was cooking and fixing and everything. And before I could get down, having changed my clothes, I hear, tally-ho, jolly-go, and, you know, and then splash and into the pool with the English agent of Robert Shaw, you know, and I had to wear my husband's shorty robe for the rest of the night.
So he was more fun, and Rodney Dangerfield didn't want to have that kind of fun. They're sort of different than what you'd expect of them.
Yeah, no, well, as he said, not Rodney, but Robert Shaw. Oh, I only drink when I'm acting. It's so boring. He wrote a book called The Man in the Glass play, Man in the Glass Booth. But no, he was. Oh my God, he was outrageous.
I'm going to ask you about a film that you probably don't get asked about that often. It's not a film, Meatballs 3, in which you play a character's name I've never forgotten, Roxy Douche, a deceased porn star.
That's the only way I played. She was deceased, you know. And it was Patrick Dempsey, Mr. Dreamy. McDreamy was about as big as my finger. I bet he was, I don't know, 17 or 18 or something like that. And he asked me one day at lunch, he said, Sally, how do you get a girl to like you? And the next day, somebody I'd known for years, a woman my age, came up to me. I was just about to go into the scene. She says, boy, and we'd all been out to hear some musicians or something, you know, play. And she says, boy, that Patrick is some hot mother, you know, something like that. He lived with her for like 5 years or something like that. Absolutely, she was my age, and the day before this happened, he says, how do you get a girl to like you, Sally? And the next thing you know, he's off with a, you know.
You played with another young actor early in his career, Three for the Road, Charlie Sheen.
I did, yeah.
And you write that he was a joy to work with.
Well, he
that
was
changed,
he was
didn't
sweet,
it?
He was darling.
He was.
Yeah.
What
Very
happened?
Sweet guy. I wonder. Drugs. You know,
But
no, it's sad. It is sad. But, and I didn't do that much with him, but with Patrick Dempsey I did a lot, and he was so free. And we had a director, I hope he's not in the room, but he was definitely not a great director, and somebody that I let hinder me, and I blamed him for years. No, I didn't for a year. For about 9 months I blamed him, and then I realized it was my fault. But he said to me after every take, we do a rehearsal, and then we're going to do the take. All right, Sally, now do it exactly like you did it at the rehearsal. And I'd be so busy going, what did I do at the rehearsal? You know, well, all right, it wasn't exactly like the rehearsal, but, you know. But anyway, so every single take, for months, we've shot up there for 2 months or something like that. It didn't matter what he said to Patrick Dempsey. Patrick Dempsey was as free as a dove. He may not have known how to get a girl, but boy, he was just, you could say, you know, boo, now, be a good actor. He could say anything to him. It would be horrible, you know. And
But he was so free.
He was so free, but I had to call my analyst about about a month into it, about more than half the way through, sobbing. I'm a wooden Indian. I had the best part. I love that part. And I had the greatest costumes. I was Marlene Dietrich. I was Marilyn Monroe. I was everybody, you know. But he said, well, don't you know there are 3,000 ways to be creative? This is what the shrink said. Next time he says that to you, just go, you bet, and do exactly what you want. So guess what? The next take, The next day I went in there and he said, all right, now do it exactly like you did the rehearsal. I said, you bet. And then I just did whatever I wanted, and he said, cut, and then he stopped for a minute and really had to ponder this, and he said, well, it wasn't exactly like the rehearsal, but print it. You know, so for the last quarter of the picture, I wasn't bad, you know, but anyway, blah, blah, blah. So,
I want to mention a film that's near and dear to Floridians, and I like it a lot, Boynton Beach Club.
oh,
Isn't that a good film?
Wasn't
That's a
that
wonderful film. It treats older people with respect and it gives them attention. It's a terrific movie.
Oh, it's
Susan Seidelman is a lovely
it's
director.
wonderful, lovely, and I don't know, I was just asking my husband who's a producer, I said, you gotta remember Susan Seidelman, I know she likes to write her own things, but everyone in that film was wonderful, which that's one of the clues how you know there's a good director on board. Because you can go to a movie where there's a couple of people that are really great, and the story's good and everything like that, but if it isn't across the board, then there hasn't been.
Everybody is wonderful in it, and
Well,
it's
I
so
work
nice.
with a director that really knows, but in Boynton,
It's so nice to see older actors given a real chance.
yeah, nice. I'm hoping that wasn't going to be the last one. But yeah, that was really, 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 really.
And Len Cariou is lovely with you in those scenes. He's
Yeah,
a stage actor primarily.
Yeah, with you know, the pudding with
Sweeney
with
Todd.
Angela Lansbury.
Yeah,
my-
unbelievable.
My hero, you know, I have twins, they're 24 now, but when they were little and Angela Lansbury was in, notice how television has changed and everything, and how my husband and I have changed. What's it called? Murder, She Wrote's going to be on. Murder, She Wrote, I take the kids and throw them 3 rooms away into their crib, you know, to get down to watch Murder, She Wrote. And now we have to watch Murder, She Wrote just to get away from all the violence, and the stabbing and the cutting and the opening of the lizard and the gizzard and the thing that you have to see, you know, there's not a lot, you know, unless you're healthy, you know.
I want to talk about 2 stage productions. One of them, our audience won't know, but it's a fascinating story to me. Sally Kellerman doesn't fool around. She was in one of the biggest flops in the history of Broadway. It didn't even open. It opened and it didn't, it closed before it was reviewed.
3 nights of previews.
Is that it? And it closed. It's a fascinating story. Her co-stars were Mary Tyler Moore and Richard Benjamin. Richard Chamberlain. And it was, the script was by not exactly an obscure writer by the name of Edward Albee. And the property you've all heard of, it's a musical version of, get this, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, but there's even something better to throw in. It was Abe Burrows.
Started it.
Who wrote Guys and Dolls and directed Guys and Dolls. And one of the greatest musicals of all time. I don't know what they say about this last film. It was the greatest film. You know, baloney. Yes, ever.
Ever.
Guys and Dolls. And we could probably all sing right now. When you meet a guy. Anyway, so Abe Burrows wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's, and he he was the director.
And that was out of town.
And it was Truman Capote's story. So that was who I first met when I got there. And we went just like old Broadway. We went a month to Boston, a month to Philadelphia, and then back to New York to, and David Merrick was the producer. He's the most famous, still to this day, probably the most famous producer on Broadway. And a strange old kind of guy, you know, but certainly talented in terms of producing. And we were hit every place we went, and we were sold out. Listen to this, how times have changed. $1 whole million for the coming year. We were sold out.
There's a lot of interest in it.
Oh,
Huge
yeah.
interest.
Oh, yeah. And I've been looking at the Mary Tyler Moore. We have this station in LA now called Me. Do you have that here? Mary Tyler Moore show and the Dick Van Dyke show and The Odd Couple. They're all so delightful and funny and effortless. But anyway.
Were you good out of town? Was the show good out of town?
Yes, we were sold out every night, and it was really fun. The audiences loved it. And I was Mary Tyler Moore's standby. I was going to get to play it 3 months the first year. I was so proud. And,
but you had a part in the show, too.
I had a part. I had a couple of duet with Mary. It was another song of my own. And I was a party girl, you know, from the movie, Blake Edwards movie. Breakfast at Tiffany's, incredible. And
what happened?
Well, David Merrick decided that it needed more substance. So he fired Abe as the writer, I believe, and so Abe quit as the director. So David Merrick hired Edward Albee. Now, we all know he wrote Virginia Woolf, I did that at.
I was going to ask you about
Yeah,
that.
I did. But anyway, and he took out all the. If you'd see the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know, there was a wonderful party scenes with all the different men, of course. So we had all these young, you know, people at the party. Edward Albee wrote them all out and put some real dirty old men in there, you know, old guys, you know, and got rid of some of the music, and it just. And Mary had to relearn. I was in the basement learning her. I already learned her show. I had to go on if she, you know, something happened. And but Mary had to learn an entirely new show before we went to New York. And while we were performing in Philadelphia, and we got there and it was horrible. People threw things at us. I think we were afraid to take curtain calls alone. And this is a show that everybody had loved in Boston.
So you knew it was bad, the Albee.
Well, it just didn't have the joy and the fun and you know, all the stuff like that. And I don't know that I did. And when Edward Albee came to see me in Virginia Woolf at Harvard, I said, you know, the last time we worked together, he said, yes, please don't tell anyone. So sorry, Ed. It looks like I did tell somebody.
Was Mary Tyler Moore a good Holly Golightly?
She was, yeah. What I feel from watching her television shows now, in retrospect, I wish that I had appreciated her more. She was just such a delightful, warm presence, you know, fun to look at. And she really, I met David Merrick. I just gotten a new manager, and I was now just starting to be hot in television because of my Outer Limits, you know, and things like that. And so I had William Morris was my agent, and my new manager, who really didn't know the business that well, but he went into, and he said, Sally wants to meet for Holly Golightly for Breakfast at Tiffany's. And they said, oh, they're only seeing stars. And Stuart, my manager, puffed and huffed. He said, if you don't think she's a star, she's out of here tonight. And I'd probably done 4 TV shows. But I got a meeting anyway, and I met with David Merrick first. And he was going to do all kinds of musicals with me, you know. But by the end of the run,
That was out.
that was out.
But then you did Virginia Woolf.
I did.
And Albee came to see you and thought you did a good job?
Well, you'd have to ask him. I don't know. Maybe.
How did you feel you did with that? It's a huge, demanding role.
Oh, I had such a wonderful director. And the first thing he said in rehearsal is to the cast, now this is not the Bible. And again, it was just, he just took the sting out of it, you know. It isn't this precious, and not meaning this isn't this precious, this is Edward Albee, and you have to be scared. It was the opposite. It's a play. It's a good play. And also as a director. And as we discussed, I'm not very literary or something, literary, intellectual. And he said, when you get in the car, he told me this is direction, get in the car, drive over him, back up, and drive over him again. Take that knife and stick it in.
So that was the
rip it
image
up
he
the front.
gave you.
So he gave me these images so that I could whisper if I wanted to, because I knew I was driving over him in the car. Or I could yell, you son of a bitch, you know, because I want to stab him. But I had these physical images in my head, and it was so great because it gave me more leeway. It gave me more freedom to be quiet, to be noisy, to be loving. I could be loving, and so I felt pretty good. I felt pretty damn good. But it was really the director, and I don't think there's anybody who was Richard Burton. Yeah, I love Richard Burton. But my co-star, who I can't remember his name, but I can still remember my own, which is a very, you know. And my manager, Charles Lago, is here, and I can remember his name, you know, so there you go.
I want to ask you about some people in your book, and I should tell the audience, Read My Lips is a terrific book, and it sounds like your voice. Your voice is writing the book.
Oh,
It's not impersonal, it's very much you, your own style, your own point of view, and you feel after reading the book that you've allowed us to get to know you, which is a wonderful feeling to have. Reading a 247-page book, you say at the end of it, I think I know this woman a little bit.
You know what's scary about that? Several people, and I appreciate the compliment, thank you. You know, reviewers and people, interviews I've had and stuff with television, radio, and they go, you know, you were so candid, you were so honest. I said, yeah, why was I? what was I thinking? You know, I wrote a book. I mean, I'm afraid to read it now. I was so candid. Someone said I felt like there was a little fly on the thing going through your life.
Very open, very available, very open. I just want to mention some fascinating people that you mention in the book, and people our audience would have heard of. You have a wonderful chapter devoted to your, is it a romance relationship with, of all people, Henry Kissinger.
It was not a romance. I know that you guys probably love Henry Kissinger. I liked him too. I liked him very much, but
You were politically on the other side of the aisle, though.
completely.
Completely.
I was picketing the war, and I was working for McGovern, and not picketing the men and women who fought in the war, but just feeling that the war was not about what I believe, you know, war should be about. We shouldn't have any war,
But you liked him.
But Jennifer Jones, you all know who she was, a big 40s movie star, and she became like my other mother. I was a friend of her son's, and she picked me up on the beach, and the first dinner she invited me to, I was alone, I was doing television, she had someone pick me up, I walked in, oh darling, I'm so glad you're here, I want you to meet some friends of mine, and her friends were Ingrid Bergman, Deborah Carr, Simone Signoret, Yves Montand, Louis Jourdan and his wife, and Ingrid's older daughter, and me, who was doing my 5th television show or something, you know, slattery people. And then I was at dinner sitting next to Lucille Ball, and sitting Lou Wasserman, who was head of Universal, and Norman Lear, who was the, you know, All in the Family, and she'd lean over me and she'd go, you know, Lou Wasserman, if David Selznick was her husband who died, who, you know, discovered everyone, all those people I just mentioned, you know, if he was alive, Sally would be the biggest star in the world. She was always in my corner promoting me and doing lovely things for me and having me do these amazing, meeting all of Cary Grant and Gregory Peck, and we were all at dinners all the time. You know, sometimes she'd invite Jack Nicholson or somebody else, but always me sitting with, and my husband sitting with Cary and George, you know, I just, so many people I met through her. And so one night she calls me up. I'd just gotten a divorce. I was married for a year, just to practice what not to do. And I'm sitting there, and the phone rings, and we were divorced, and we bought this big, huge house. I was so out of touch with myself. It wasn't his fault, it was mine, you know. What I was doing, it was like the kids today that buy these mansions. This was not like their mansions, but, you know, I had no furniture, and I had scarves trying to sell it. And she says, Sally, dear, we're having a dinner party, and Henry Kissinger would like you to be his date. I said, ooh, Jennifer, I'd be embarrassed to be seen with him. Besides, I'm working for McGovern, you know, and she said, and she turns to Norton Simon, who she'd married, a Hunts tomato fellow, and says, Norton, she'd be embarrassed to be seen with him. So then she comes back, well, would you at least sit next to him? And I go, I had to. I mean, she did everything in the world for me, so I go, all right, if I have to. And so my mother, who was a good Republican at the time, said, oh, I was thrilled to death because he'd just been to China. So, big, you know, so she sends me this article, and I'm just miserable, you know. And so I had to figure out what the heck I'm going to do to get out of this thing, but I didn't. I had to do it for Jennifer. So I arrive at the dinner, and he's sitting on a stool or something. I always remember sort of being over him. And I say, hi, how are you? How was China? And he said, why? Did your mother send you an article? I said, damn it, I have to like him now. You know, how could you not like him? So we sat at dinner and everybody made fun. There was Rita Hayworth and oh God, oh, another fabulous star of that period. Can't think of his name. And they started teasing him. Did you see MASH, Henry? I guess it was just sort of the time I'd gotten. Well, he said, no, the president wouldn't let me see it. And then he would make fun of him even more. Oh, the president wouldn't let you see it. Oh, I see. Well, that's why he didn't see it. So at the end of the dinner, we all stand up. All these same people, I'm just talking. George Saunders, not George Sanders, I love George Sanders, but somebody. We all stood up at the table, and in front of everybody, at our table, there were other tables of people. He says, sorry, we're having the Russian ambassador is coming here for the first time in this country, and we're having a small dinner party, and would you like to go with me? And it's like, you know, it's like I'm here, and he's asking me in front of everybody what I'm going to say. No. And I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to say? You know, my mind is just going, oh my God, I can't be seen with him. And I go, okay, you know, one of those kind of really warmed his heart, I'm sure. And so blah, blah, blah. Then cut to the night of the thing, I called him up. Am I really to say this? It's one thing to write it in the paper. Henry has a great sense of humor, so I'm praying this will be one of those times. He called me up and I said, listen, Henry, you know, I'm really ambivalent about this because, you know, I'm working for the governor and everything, and you guys are murderers. And he goes, Sally, I'm sure you didn't mean that. I said, oh, I didn't mean that, but, you know, I just mean, you know, anyway, I put my foot in it, and so anyway, I went with him. He picked me up in this big empty house, you know, and all the way to the dinner, I'm going, why are you in Vietnam? And, well, Dick, I said, I don't care about the president, but why are you there? And why? And grilling him all the way to this dinner. And the big rebel, you know. Anyway, it was very nice, and he had me stand up and welcome the Russian ambassador. And my big joke is I like to tell everyone. And so I stood up and I said, welcome, and he asked me out later. But he didn't. That was just my joke. I always say, you know, he stood up and everyone was there, and he said, could you have dinner with Sally? Would you have dinner with me? So anyway, I saw Henry a couple of times. It was strictly platonic. He loved Robert Wagner's wife. What is her name?
Natalie Wood.
No, not Natalie, that died, but
Jill
St.
St. John.
And he really liked her, and he thought she was really smart, and we talked about her and stuff like that. And he was just really nice and charming. But so he called me another time. The same people, this lawyer, Paul Zimmerman, and my Jennifer Jones, and I was now living in a little tiny house. Seriously, I was in Malibu. And when he arrived, I wasn't ready. I was in the shower, actually. And I didn't have any help or no butler greeting him at the door. So he came in and sat on a little couch in this little tiny living room. And I didn't have crackers or water or wine or cheese or anything, nothing for him. Stick my wet head out and go, I'll be with you in a minute. You know, 20 minutes later, I get ready. Then I said, he said, Sally, I know you are working for McGovern, but when we win, we will still give you a passport. And so, you know, I laugh. I say, so he says, so we're going to go now down the beach. And he says, let's go to the car. I say, no, let's walk. Come on, let's get real. We'll take our shoes off and go on the beach. Sally, you are trying to ruin me, he says. So we go to the beach, come back, kiss on the cheek, and off he goes. Just really nice. I mean, we were so politically different.
But he must have enjoyed the fact that you were so different.
Well, it was fun, and because he had a great sense of humor, and you know how you're around somebody makes you want to be a little funnier. So I got two great letters from him. One said a postcard from Russia with love, Henry Kissinger, and the other one was, dear Sally, sorry I haven't written lately. I've been busy stopping the war. What have you been up to? So those are my two, you know, and all I have is copies of them in the book because I lost them for 30 years. I put a marketing list on the back of one when I refound them 30 years later, and I lost them again before I could actually put the real ones in the book. So all I had was the speech. But anyway, the things that he brought out, maybe as he called from the White House or something, and one of these conversations, the red light went on, and he said, Sally, the red light is on. So I took a beat and went, so? Who is more important? Me. Sally, you are trying to ruin me. You know, so. Anyway, I haven't seen him in years. He called me after the Watergate to tell me that he was not involved and he wasn't going to be. And that was really the last time I spoke to him. But it was wild.
I'm sure everybody feels, can't you see the appeal between the two of them? They both were enjoying each other, it's obvious.
Well, it was.
Foster, we have a little time for some Q&A with the audience.
Yes.
Oh my God, guys, I have talked so much.
No, isn't it fascinating?
If anybody has any questions, please.
There's anything left?
Well, there's plenty left. Read the book. There's a lot left. Yes. Tell us about Marlon Brando.
Now here's a subject I'd like to talk about. You know? Yes. Well, you know, I got to leave something out for the book. I mean, I don't want to tip my whole head about Marlon, do I?
Just one little anecdote. Just one.
Well, I'll just tell you the first time that I actually had a moment with him, which will lead to bigger moments along the way if you read the book. But always worshipped him, thought he was always skinny and magnificent. I saw him in junior high in Viva Zapata, standing in white pants with no shirt on, you know, and Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby had been my heroes, and suddenly everything changed. Steamy sensuality and changed the face of acting. I was doomed. And I was, you know, heavy set in junior high and high school and everything. And I heard that maybe he had a little weight problem at some time. It took place years later. But I said I felt he would understand me. You know, like Robert Altman and Jeff Corey. You know, he was going to understand me. And so blah, blah, blah. I go to Hollywood. We move to Hollywood. I go to Hollywood High. I see every one of his films 7 times. I'm driving down Hollywood Boulevard one day, and I look over this little white, kind of wrecked old car, and I see Marlon Brando. I thought, that can't be Marlon Brando. He'd be in a limo, you know. And anyway, I started seeing him wherever I went. I went to a movie in the rain, and he had white pants on. I went out with my waitress money and bought the first pair of pants. I couldn't put them on. And anyway, one night, after seeing him so many times and telling my best friend Luana, I think I'm going to see Marlon again. She said, don't say that because you probably are, you know. And so one night I went to see Stan Getz, who also I was a huge fan of, a musician. You probably know him. Great jazz. And this club that we all used to hang out in just as kids. And I go there, and I know the bouncer, and I go, hey, Al, can I get in? You know, and I got to see Stan. He goes, okay, come on in. I'll put you right over here. I say, okay, great. And I sit down, and I come with someone, I don't remember who it was. And then suddenly out of the dark comes his voice, sayonara, on the waterfront, Marlon Brando, how do you do? And I look to my left, and sitting right next to me is Marlon, who's thrown his head back and laughed at the spontaneity and the confidence of this young boy, where everybody, the rest of us, were frightened to death. You know, I would have died to say hello to Marlon Brando. So knowing that he is sitting right here turned me into a wooden Indian. Or he wouldn't say that anymore, it's stone. It was stone. And I sat through 2 sets of Stan Getz, never looking to the left or the right. And when my date left, he said, I'm leaving now. I went, bye. And I kept sitting there. And now the lights come on, and Marlon's still sitting there too. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get up or what to do. And suddenly I hear, so what are you, an actress? Yes, I am, I whirled around and said, and I don't think it's funny. And he said, oh, would you like to go for a ride? Yes, I would. And so we go out to the car, and I'm so frightened, and so, I don't know what I am, you know, just so in love and scared. And we get in the same old beat-up car, and we drive about 1/4 of a block. And he reaches over and he touches my arm, and I pull back, and he says, right, I wouldn't want to spoil this beautiful friendship. Turns the car around and drops me off in front of the club.
Another question?
I just want to finish this.
And so keep guessing.
Okay, no, somebody said, oh, you must have been devastated. I said, devastated? I've never been so thrilled. I was over the moon. I was in Marlon Brando's car. I rushed to the nearest phone booth and called my friend Luana. I was in Marlon's car. I got in his car, you know. So.
And he appears later in the book, but we won't
tell
them.
He appears yes, again. Many times. And, yeah. So you just had to read it.
Do you have any other questions?
Are you married now?
33 years I'm married. Yeah. 35 together. And I met him in group therapy. And I first thought was, when I saw him, I thought, oh, I hope he's not too sick. And he saw that I'd been crying, and he noticed that when I saw him, I stopped crying, and his inner monologue was, I got that chick. I had to actually lasso the guy, you know.
But part of, I think we'll end with this, sort of a personal note. Your husband's younger.
Yeah, 15 years.
15 years younger, and at age 52, you adopted 2 children.
Jack and Hannah, my twins. Yeah.
And you adopted your sister's daughter, Claire.
Early on.
Early on.
Yeah, I did.
So you've gone your own way. You're your own person. You're unconventional.
So. I guess so. Is there anything burning? Another question before we go? 1957. I was
1957.
like 19 or something like that. 20. I don't know. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, and really did start with one line, and the assistant makeup artist, you know, with the black eyebrows, and you know, practicing on me. And
I see there's a gentleman with his hand up there. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
You've had such a huge body of work. What roles are you most proud of?
What roles are you most proud of?
I love Last of the Red Hot Lovers. You know, the one with Alan Arkin in that fur coat. Oh, I love it so much. I had the greatest part, and Neil Simon writing, you know, it was just incredible. And of course, MASH, Hot Lips, I'm, you know, thrilled to have that experience. And I love working with Jimmy Caan. I've been in love with Jimmy
Slither.
Caan. You know, it doesn't matter what he's been through, the drugs, he's older, his face, you know, whatever. I love him. He couldn't, there's nothing he could do to not have me love him, and I never see him. I mean, every now and then I do, and I'm so thrilled. But that was Slither with the long hair, you know, talking about sweating legs or whatever I was. You know, I don't care if I held up. It was, not a lot of people saw that, and it was one of my favorite things.
And you're proud of your singing career.
And yeah, let's not go. You can't get out until you hear about my singing for 2 seconds. I was under contract at Verve right out of high school. I got my first album I made called Roll With The Feeling. Lou Adler got me my first demo, and he just got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he produced Carole King and Papas and Sam Cooke, and he produced Bristol McCloud. I got up every night. Lou, I could do it. That started official music, because I never wanted to be an actress out being a singer. I never was going to quit until I was a real singer, not just an actor who has learned to sing for the part and stuff like that. I wanted my own voice. I wanted to be Billie Holiday without the drugs. So after I got nominated, so I made that first thing called Roll With The Feeling, which has just been re-released after 40 years by Universal Music digitally. And it's, you know, based, it's Janis Joplin, Laura Nyro influenced. But anyway, oh shit, I was on a fast roll there.
You were determined to become
so yeah, so
a
just
real
when I was
singer.
nominated for this Academy Award and everything, and being offered so many great roles. I turned down Bob Saget, Carol Alice, The Design Venture, and even if you didn't like them, they were huge hits, and it would have just really propelled me. My inner monologue when I was nominated was, okay, I've got that set now. Now I'm going to work on my music. So I got a band. It was Neil Diamond who said, if you want to be taken seriously, get a band and go on the road. Harry Nilsson, who I worshipped, and Richard Perry was a great, produced every hit record in the 70s, 80s, 90s. He said, stay in the studio, but I heard taken seriously. I got a band, I knew nothing. I traveled with 11 guys. I came back 50,000 in the hole. But what I like to say is what fun we had at the Cook's house after the third show by the freeway. You know, I mean, you know, that was, I wanted soul. I wanted to be the real deal. As an actress, I did plays. I was in class constantly, you know, and took anything I could get. And I wanted to be the real deal, and it has taken me, ladies and gentlemen, 40 years to find it, to be free. I've been in Nashville and Muscle Shoals, and Barry Manilow produced stuff for me, and Bobby Womack, and the opposite of Barry Manilow. I just go wherever they'd have me. But it's meant so much to me, and I have a CD now called Sally that you can get online, and you know, on Amazon or you know, iTunes or anything like that. And I'm so proud of it. I work with such a great Grammy-winning producer. It's a real classic. I mean, he said we're making a timeless album, and it is something that doesn't go bad because it is timeless. That's what he said we're doing, because you don't know, it doesn't have a period stamped on it. But I'm just, you know, Charles is going to help me put a tour together, and I'm going to go on the road and try to do some of these performing arts centers. He's insisting I do it as a one-woman show, although my passion has been the music. I've enjoyed talking to everyone on this book tour that we've been on, and so I guess I'm going to have to make it a one-woman show, but I'm going to sing a lot in that one show.
Actually, Sally's given me a great closing line. Can't we, after this delightful interview, say indeed that Sally Kellerman is the real deal?
Really, this may be my last moment. I don't know. Falling.
Hi, we had a chairman here somewhere that was going to come bring you something. Come on down, Alan.
A chair?
We have a chairman. We have our lifetime achievement plaque for you, and we want to just thank you so much. Come on.
Oh, Great, thank you. Really, really nice.
Yeah, now we're going to adjourn to the courtyard where you'll have an opportunity to